Are you a designer in Europe listening to this podcast today? And maybe you've thought to yourself, my goodness, these people in the U.S. between Las Vegas market, High Point market, all I see on Instagram is all these posts about all these wonderful events and how they get together and they have so much fun. Well, I am beyond excited to tell you that I will be speaking at the Business of Interiors 2025 Community Summit this June 23rd and 24th. And it's happening right in the heart of London on the iconic King's Road. Right? Now, this is your chance to come together with your fellow designers to talk about your challenges, share your experiences, and work on your business. And let's be honest, you know what? In Europe, you pretty much hop from Italy to London like we hop from Jersey to Florida. So I hope you will seriously consider making this trip. I'm going to be there. I want to help you find clarity and strategy so you can build a business that is enjoyable and profitable. Right? And this summit, it's not just smart content. It's beautifully curated from breakfast to cocktails. You will feel taken care of and fired up. Head over to thebusinessofinteriors.co.uk. Learn more, get your ticket, and let's finally meet each other. After 9.5 years of this podcast, I am really looking forward to meeting you, my European listener. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's episode is a tiny bit different in the best way. I'm not the one hosting the conversation. Today, I'm the guest. Over the years, I've had the privilege of being invited onto some incredible podcasts, conversations where with that host, we've dug into business, mindset, leadership, and the real lessons that I've learned from decades in this industry. So in this special crossover series, I'm sharing with you some of these episodes from other podcasts brought here to my podcast feed. These are powerful conversations that often offer a different lens, because when I'm in the guest seat, you might hear different stories, different angles, and new insights that don't always come up when I'm the one asking the questions. And you know what the bonus is? If you like what you hear in this particular episode, I highly encourage you to check out that host's show, right? So you might like more of their episodes, and we will link their podcast in the show notes and more about them as well in the show notes so that you can now begin to learn from them and their brilliance as well. All right, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Masters, and today on the show we have LuAnn Nigara. She actually has a real business. We were talking about this right before. It's called WindowWorks. It's in New Jersey. She's also been called a window treatment authority, which I thought was amazing. She has a podcast. It's called the Well-Designed Business Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, Jaime, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. This is really actually just a tiny bit of a thrill for me. You know, you're a leader in our industry here, so I'm very excited to finally meet you virtually in person.
I'm so excited because I was like, yes, I have one woman entrepreneur today on my schedule. I so try. And the fact that you have an insane business, when we were just chatting before, you're like, I've been in business 35 years. I'm like, I'm so excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about the beginning parts and diving into starting this business, and tell everybody what it is also?
Okay, so Window Works is a custom window treatment and awning retailer. And as you said, we're in Livingston, New Jersey, and I'm actually co-owners with my husband and our cousin Bill. And we started it together back in the early 80s, and it started originally. Window Works was actually a franchise, and it was a franchise that was born in Florida, South Florida. And when we started our franchise, we were the 11th franchise in the system. And by the time the franchise was sold, one time was a happy sale, good for all of the franchisees. The second sale was basically a corporate raider, and that busted up the franchise. But by the time it sold, there were over 100 units across the country. So, so that was fun. And my husband was actually the franchisor for the state of New Jersey. So we had sort of two roles. We ran our own business, but then he also recruited and sold to other people to have a franchise, and then our team trained them.
Do you like the franchise model? People go back and forth, and one of my clients is a franchise lawyer, and it's like, do we start our own? Do we get a franchise? Tell me what you thought about that process at the beginning.
Well, from the standpoint of our experience, the one thing that it did do was that it really, because of franchise, really, what is it? It's a cookie cut system for running a business, right? And so from that standpoint, it really teaches you the value of having a system for running your business. So I know for a fact that my husband would have had the system anyway. This franchise that we had together was his second business, and he was a systems guy to begin with. But I don't know that any of the three of us could have lived with being a franchisee for our entire business life, because you do have a lot of your wings are clipped, because do it this way, don't do it that way. But looking back as young people, the value of this is how you write an order, this is how you executed this, that is one thing now that we're constantly trying to teach people in business behind us, that you've got to have that foundation of your systems so that you can start to really scale up and duplicate yourself and all of the things that come with a successful business.
Yeah, it helps you hit the ground running a little bit faster, but it also costs quite a bit too. So you're paying money instead of the time that it would take you in order to do that. But of course, if you don't have the experience, it's way harder to figure it out on your own. So when did you guys not become a franchise then?
It was probably around 92. So maybe 10 years into it, the franchise disbanded. So the thing for us is that because we were the first one in New Jersey, and because, like I said, my husband's role was also to recruit and train, and our business was the training ground for the other 26 franchises in New Jersey, I can't say that we always had the experience of almost being, quote unquote, the franchisor. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because we were the hub here in Jersey, and we were the training ground and the teachers and so forth like that. So at that point, we probably weren't deriving a whole lot of benefit from being a franchise. Yep. But I don't mean that in a negative way. It wasn't like we were ever like, this is crazy, there's no value here. There were other tangible benefits of being a part of a buying group and being part of an opportunity to meet yearly at a conference with just your own people and have your own conversations about the things that were specific to your industry and those learning things. So it was always a positive experience until the day it wasn't. And that's when we got the heck out of Dodge.
See, I love hearing this. A lot of people don't talk about the pieces behind it, because I've had people that have had franchises and then decided to do their own thing, and they, of course, non-compete. They have to wait for a while and all that stuff. But they're like, I can do it better and blah, 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 because they did feel like their wings were clipped. But I love that you actually found assets within all of that too. What made you not sort of go and franchise on your own afterwards?
Well, I guess because that's a whole nother business. I mean, we were busy running the business of window treatments and awnings. And so that would have literally been a different business model. And one of the things that we're very strong on and have identified very clearly as a principle of being successful in business is knowing your core mission. And our core mission was to sell window treatments and awnings. That's at the very basis. It was to provide shade and light control and privacy at the window. And so to go and launch a franchise selling window treatment businesses wasn't part of our core mission.
Did you ever get bored with your mission? Because no offense, it's window treatments. I know you're the authority, but let's ask that. I have to.
Every fifth day? No.
35 years is a long time in window treatments.
I mean, truthfully, Jamie, there is a long and a short answer to that. The short answer to that is, oh, heck yeah. You know what I mean? And the long answer to that is that one of the places that I've actually come to in this trajectory of being in business this many years is that I've gone through the struggle. And when I say I, it's we. It's definitely my husband, myself, and my cousin, and it's our team. But we've been through the struggle to get a business off the ground. We've been through the struggle to weather our first recession, which was the craziest, scariest thing that we've ever done. And then, you are up and you're running and you're kind of like all engines are firing. And then that's when it's like, wait, this is it forever? And then I totally personally had a midlife crisis in our business. I was like, you are out of your mind if you think I am doing this for another 40 years. You're absolutely crazy. I'm bored out of my mind. I don't care if they get white or off white. I'm tired of deciding if the rod should be at 93 inches off the ground or 93 and a half inches off the ground. Shoot me. You know what I mean? And my husband, he very smartly looked at me and he said, you're looking at a staff of 20 people at this point, and you are the number one driver of sales, and it's not about you. You don't get to jump ship. You know what I mean? He goes, we have 2 kids in college. We have, 20 employees, and you don't get to jump ship. Get over yourself. Get back in the game.
And that worked.
Well, it did, because what I did was, this is funny that we're going down this whole road, but I do think it's sort of a, empathy journey. Is what I did was I stepped out a little bit and did something just for me. Mm. So at that point, I had stepchildren in college and high school. I had a baby that was probably 5 years old. And what I did was I've always wanted to learn French. So I was like, well, then I'm learning French. And he's like, whatever.
Okay, have fun with that. No.
And I have to do it during the day because I'm not going there at night and yada, yada, yada. And the thing was, Jamie, it was funny, was because with just the distraction of really immersing myself into something that I was learning, like 10 years ago, that was, 25 years ago. Now, 10 years ago, it was yoga. I was like, I have to learn yoga. And so I just find that when it matters, in this case, it mattered. We had an entire staff and we had bills, and I was one of the most, sales drive numbers. You do have to figure out ways to keep your head in the game. And so what would always happen is I would go out, do some personal development, and then all of a sudden things would happen, and all of a sudden I would be busier at work, and I can't take French anymore, and I can't get to yoga this week, and I would get revitalized. And the end of the story, and the long answer end, is that at this point, I look back at it much the way you would look back at a 30-plus year marriage. There's really intense moments. There's really hard moments. There's really joyous moments, but it's worth the ride, and it's worth the ride to ride it through and be grateful for what you've created.
I love you gave me goosebumps too. So I love all of this because I think what sucks is with entrepreneurs, we like change a lot and we love learning and growing. And so when you feel like you're stagnant, even if it's a good stagnant in your business, we're like, what's the next thing? Where do we go? Right? Oh, let me start 7 more businesses. And what you're saying is you solve that same need, right? To get over the ebbs and flows, with still learning and creating, but just in a different side of it. So I really, really appreciate you saying that, because most entrepreneurs just assume they have to sort of wipe away and throw away what they've done and then start something new or something like that.
Right. Well, and that goes back to sticking to your core mission. And, it goes back to, that business has to keep riding. And so sometimes I'll give you a perfect example. At one point I said, well, maybe we should start to do interior design too. We should do floor plans and decorating and stuff like that. And he's just looking at me like, no. And I'm like, well, maybe we should have furniture in the showroom. And he's just looking at me, no. And at one point I did actually convince him to let me put a few pieces of furniture in the showroom and some accessories that people could walk in and cash and carry. Well, whether they were there 1 year or 5 years, not one item was ever sold, because it isn't what we do. And he was just indulging me. He was just like, all right, you crazy lady. You want to put some accessories? And that's exactly it. Whereas if he was a hard and fast partner, he probably would have just said no way. But because there's that part where he's my husband and he loves me and he's like, all right, I'll make her happy, put the stuff in the showroom. But I now know, and I understood looking back, is like you said, if you're a little bored in your business, is it because it's running so well? Don't upset the apple cart and screw with that. Go get a hobby for a year or two until you get excited again.
I love this. I want to talk about you and having your husband as a business partner. I just did a whole thing in Thailand, well, not just, but did a whole thing in Thailand about this and I've worked with tons of married couples or people in family businesses. Oh, right. So do you have any tips for people? Because what I loved about what you just said is you're like, so I finally convinced him to do this and he finally indulged me, right? And everybody's like nodding their head. Yeah, oh yeah, that makes total sense, right? With marriage, with business, it's so interesting because it just feels like it's so different and yet it's still a relationship. So you tell me some tips or feedback or examples that you've had from weathering that storm of business and with your marriage.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to kid you and say, oh, don't go to bed angry at each other ever. Believe me, you're going to go to bed angry sometimes if you're creating an entire life with children and mortgages and a business. It's going to happen. Okay.
We all feel better now. Thank you.
Exactly. Like the straight talk, right? But I would say as much as, I guess what I'm trying to say in that is be realistic in your expectations, right? Number one. And I think anybody that tells you, hey, it's a cakewalk, crazy pants. Okay. But I will tell you that I would say, I don't know if this is like childbirth or not. You know how it's like when you have childbirth and you're just like in the moment, it's like, oh my God. And then a day later, you're like, well, that wasn't that bad. So I don't know if this is like, I was about to say, I would say that 98% of the time it was awesome. And I'm like, was this like childbirth where it really wasn't 98% of the time?
I would be so interested. It is one of those things, right? When the pain is really, really great. Thank goodness we have video of me when I had my first baby going, one baby, like, oh no, we're having one. Of course I have two, right? Of course, right? So yes, that's a wonderful thing. I feel like that's the best part of our evolution to forget that piece, right? So I want to know though, think about it. Is it 98% or are we going, oh, everything's sunshine and roses right now?
Well, I you know what I would say? I will, and without kidding, truly, I will say that we have a very great dynamic, and don't forget, it's our cousin too. So it's three family members.
Yes.
Okay. And we have a very great dynamic in that, the ebook, right? The E-Myth book with Gerber, right?
Everybody mentions that. Yes, I definitely know that.
So here's the funny thing. Now, I told you, we started our business in the early 80s, and I only became aware of this book maybe a year and a half ago. And as I'm listening to this book on tape, I'm like, wait a minute. We are the E-Myth. We are legitimately the E-Myth. And so my husband now, these are Michael Gerber's descriptions. He says you have the manager who, oversees the bookkeeping and the finances and the insurance and, la. Then you have the technician and then you have the entrepreneur. And I happen to disagree with the moniker entrepreneur because they're all entrepreneur. But the entrepreneur is the visionary, the one who pushes, the dreamer, who looks at the big business picture and work on the business as opposed to in it, right? We are very truly by nature, those three individuals.
Really? Wait, who's who? Who's what? So your husband's systems, right?
Right. So he's the manager. Okay. He's the systems. He has an MBA in accounting. He has an accounting degree and an MBA in business. And he is the one that, all things strategic with the business. Are we going to take a lease on? Are we going to buy a new truck? Are we going to hire a new employee? Are we going to, can we handle it from a number standpoint? And he's the one who oversees all of that. And then Billy is our lead installer, our cousin. He's the technician. He's the one who creates art at the window. If I could do everything I could do, my husband could do everything he does, but if Billy doesn't put up an amazing window treatment, nobody's calling you again. And then I'm the person that's always like I remember when the internet started and I was saying, we need a website. And they're like, what do we need a website for? I'm like, well, it's going to be a big thing. We need a website. And I'm like, we have to start doing email. They're like, why do we have to start doing email for? And then how about last year? We need a podcast. They're like, what's a podcast? I'm like, we just need one. It's the next thing. We have to do it.
That's amazing because you're always looking at the forefront. Go you.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that.
Right. And so that ties back to how our marriage works within the partnership, because not that we don't ever fight to the death on something that we each really want, right? But we have always, from the very beginning, respected and understood, without Michael Gerber writing a book and telling us, that we each have our, what's the buzzword now, our zone of genius, right? This is the word we all hear now, right? So, but we just instinctively understood that we each had certain areas of the business that we were better at than the other partner. All of us have our strengths and are good at a lot of things. And when we would have a disagreement, it was just understood that the partners whose domain that was has the final say. And so you could fight to the death. You could bring your case day after day. And I could walk through the door and say, I still don't want to, or he could still. But ultimately, when that, and we never said, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this. We just organically respected each other's domain. And now it has become that.
So it wasn't as though you had the org chart and you're like, I'm going to do these types of roles. It was like the strengths sort of came and evolved from what you're doing.
Yeah. And you just sort of looked at your other person there and you just said, you're really good at that. And so why would I second guess you on that? And so I think now yourself as a business coach, and I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs as well, is I say, have that conversation if you have partners, right? Okay. We were very lucky that we all really have very, very different skill sets. It wouldn't have worked out for us organically if we each two or three had the same skill set.
That's what I was going to ask you though, because if you're married, you can't be like, oh, thank goodness my husband is a this, right? You don't know what they are. So what if it doesn't work? What if it's not that synergistic? Do you think people should get into business together?
Well, then I don't know if they shouldn't. I mean, I think anybody who has a desire to and has a good product and has a good foundation for what the idea and the concept and everything is, I think they should go for it. But I do think in that case, you do have to have very clear discovery sessions, even if it's just the two of you at the kitchen table. I understand that we're both really good at finances, but who is just one little bit more adept, or who has that really great skill at finance plus can sort of project, how about the one that's better at finances and is more interested in keeping up with world events as they relate to finances, right? You could both be good at numbers and one of you can't care what's happening in the trends and the recessions that might be coming or going. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's about facing it with eyes wide open and making agreements. Because look, we have skills that overlap. My husband is also an excellent salesperson. So it's not like, oh, I'm like this and he's like this. I mean, we're sort of like this. And so, but there are just certain things that at the end of the day, you got to go, okay, that's your domain. You're better. Even if you're just 1 inch better.
See, that's perfect, though, that you're both really good salespeople, because that's amazing for a businc. And then for everything, it just worked out perfectly for you guys.
It did work out.
Man, everyone's like, this is annoying. No. So let's break it down into a little more details, too, because I get this question. And I feel like there's so many nuances. So I want your feedback or stories or whatever you've got on this, because when do you put the line between when you talk about business and when you talk about personal? Like at the dinner table, are you allowed to bring up business stuff? Tell me more about how this goes.
Try not to. That's all I would say is try not to. I mean, honestly, Jamie, I don't know. I mean, I would say it's always open for discussion. I don't think that we've ever said, we'll only talk about it during, 9 to 9 and not after 9 p.m., But I think for us, we really love our business. We really love the people that work for us. We love each other. We love our partner. We love our clients. We enjoy it. And I would say there have been moments where I know me particularly, where I have just said, I really just need a moment not to talk about this. And so, but I would say maybe I've said that 5 times in 30 plus years, where I just went, I'm up to here. I have too much on my plate right now, and I know that I can't accomplish it. And so right now I need to just pretend that it's not real.
I know that feeling. Yes, but it's the awareness.
And change the subject.
Yes, seriously. I think everybody can identify with that. Like, and I'm done. Nope, I'm done. Done.
And usually halfway into that wine, I'll be like, all right, now I can talk. What do we want to do?
So that's the funny thing. Like what you're bringing up over and over is these ebbs and flows, right? And so us really paying attention to the fact that there are ebbs and flows, both in marriages and in businesses and in days, right? Like, and riding the wave. So how do you do that? Especially like, do you do a lot of self-care stuff? And I know we're talking about what we totally not said we were going to talk about, but I find this so interesting. Like, are you one of those type of people that work really, really hard during the day and like really try and give yourself the self-care that people need, right? Especially as a mom, it's really tough.
I would say I was much better at it when I was a mom with children in the house.
Really? You were better at it?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that. No.
Well, because what I would do is I would multitask it. So then, in other words, when you have small children in the house, and maybe, not younger than 8, because your kids are probably not at the age where they're at a lot of activities, but from 8 until, they drive, at least my kid, was, gymnastics and, piano and yada, yada. And and CCD, I mean, I literally, every single time she was at an activity, then I did an activity. So if it was a piano lesson, then I had to walk around the block as many times as it took for her to get out of piano. If it was a gymnastics session that was going to go an hour and 20 minutes, okay, I dropped you off, I go to the gym. And that could be at 3:00 in the afternoon. You know what I mean? Because what would happen for me is I could sit at my desk for an hour and 15 minutes and know I could get up on time to pick her up, but I couldn't take a client-facing appointment and know that I could get up and leave in that time frame. So it became, well, I know I can go to the gym and leave in that time frame. Let me do that. You know what I mean? And so, one time she was in high school and we had set up, my youngest daughter was a softball pitcher and she played at college and everything. And at one point she was involved in like strength training and agility training, and it was twice a week. And I said when I went to the place and I was interviewing which gym to take her to, because it's like high level training and all that stuff at that point, right? And finally they knew it was between them and another place, and they were offering a Tai Chi class on the same nights, but it was only to kids. And I said, look, here's the deal. I'll put her in the training here if I can take the Tai Chi class the 2 nights a week at no charge.
Sold. You are a negotiator.
So now it's harder because now it's harder to stop for me because, now like when I would be at my desk and the pile would be to here and she had to be picked up from basketball practice at 6:00. Okay, you might show up at 10 after 6 and she's the only kid standing there with the coach under the street light. You know what I mean? But you don't show up at 7:30.
Yes.
And so now it's like, oh, there's a yoga class at 6. Oh, at 5 to 6, at 6. Oh, well, 5 after, I guess I missed it. I'll work another 3 hours. I guess I'll go home at midnight tonight. So it's harder now, Jamie.
Why is that? Okay, so let's talk about that because I didn't quit my job until I got pregnant because it was a catalyst, right? And when the kids have to be picked up from school, you pick them up. And yet the weeks that I don't have the kiddos, I'm like, I'm just gonna we're so horrible at this for ourselves. How can we make it better? What has worked for you on that side? Because everybody knows it's hard, but I'm sure you solved a few of it.
Well, what it is for me, what had happened, look, I don't have a magic pill. I'm honest with you. You really just have to make the
That's why I had you on.
I know, sorry. False advertising. It really it's just like everything else. It comes down to a choice. And there are, just like we talked about ebbs and flows, there are weeks and months that I'm better at, that's it. Yoga's at 6, I'm leaving, or I'm not taking any appointments till 9:30 because I'm going to go for a run in the morning and then I have to shower. I mean, I have to say my husband is so lucky because A, he's bald, and B, he's a guy. So he just puts his exercise in at 11 o'clock in the morning, goes, does a good 40-minute workout, takes a 10-minute shower, and he's back to work. And I'm like, I got to dry my hair, I got to do my makeup. I can't do it in the middle of the day. So, but it is, Jamie, it just, what I find for me is I'm mostly in balance. And I don't really mean that the hours are balanced. That's just a term I use for my inner world, my brain inside. And I can be guilty of all work and not enough play. And what'll happen though is there'll be a moment where my person, my body, my inner voice will just really start to be like, okay, crazy lady, like this can't continue. You're no good to anybody. But mostly what I notice is I will have a loss of patience for a task that really should have been no big deal. And then I'll go, oh, okay, when's the last time you went for a run? And I'll be like, yeah, it's a little too long.
Okay, I love you saying this because I feel like, especially females, right? And I've been chatting with my guy clients on this, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about feelings. This is going to be fun. And they're like, oh gosh, Jaime. And I was like, no, logical. It's going to be I promise. But you said your inner knowing or inner voice or whatever that was. And what's funny is I've been working on this for a long time. Like, what do I actually want? How does it show up? Because what you just said is, the loss of patience. How did you start fine tuning and really paying attention to what was the actual issue instead of you just losing your patience more often?
Well, because I just have it. And I don't know, maybe it comes with age. It comes with years. I know that by nature, I'm a roll with the punches person. Like I don't get rattled. It's like things happen every day. I tell my employees every day, if you think that you're not going to make a mistake today at work, just stay home. If you're waiting for me not to make a mistake, then don't look. So I know that each one of us in our team, somebody is going to have a mistake today. They're going to forget to do something. They're going to do something wrong. And that does not rattle me. It's expect it and roll with it and get up and go on. And so when a small little thing is like, I'm just like, I will crazy pants. I'll literally find myself scream out loud and I'll be like, okay, you're off your rocker. Not at a person, but it's usually like I'm getting in the car and instead of making 3 trips, I have to carry everything in one trip because I'm so hurried, I'm so late, and I've got 20 things to do, and then everything drops. And instead of just being like, oh, I dropped everything, I'll be like, oh, I dropped everything. And I'm like, okay, you're on the dark side. Reel it back in.
Noted. So how do you get back on the light side? Tell me what works for you.
No, then it's, those are, thankfully, that's like a once a year, twice a year type of a thing, that to that level where I'm standing in a parking lot screaming, like a lunatic at nobody other than myself. But then it is, what I find is that if I just take a look at my day, my week, I've not done all the things that I know I need to do. I'm not intentional with my schedule. I'm not intentional with the tasks. I'm not organized in my task. I have let the busyness push away the parameters of productivity. And it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve my employees. It doesn't serve my customers. It serves nobody. So,
okay. So let's talk about this a little bit more because I feel like I've been doing this lately. And so I'm like, oh, tell me more about how this goes. Because you can't get it all done. There's so many things in business. You've been in business for 35 years and wait, you still have more on your to-do list, right? There's always more.
I've never left with it all done in one day, ever.
Well, and I don't think it's possible. I mean, maybe I live in a different reality, but because there's always going to be new things that we can do because we're awesome, amazing people that can always do more. We can't feel bad about it not getting done, number one, right?
No.
But then how do we mitigate that to leave without things being done? Because I also love having things checked off lists, right? And especially I do so many of these interviews and I'm like, oh, I should do that. I don't know. I can't do any of it right now. Right? How do you deal with all of that? Please give me advice.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go to some of the language that I've heard over the interviews of my podcast and, of course, all the great books that we read. And the thing is, these concepts are put out by multiple, by entrepreneur after entrepreneur, because they are true. It's the big rock theory, move the big rock. Or I had one woman on my show, Marianne Cherico, and she actually said the sentence, what would the CEO do? And I went, oh, I like that. Because it's sort of like there's times where I am like knee deep and I'm like, oh my God, there's 10 people here that could do this. And there's only 2 of us here that could do this thing.
Yeah.
What am I doing with this? So I just feel like, look, we're sort of lighthearted here and doing all this stuff, but a well-run business is rooted in its systems. There's no question. And I just don't think that there is any magic pill. And the reality of the magic pill is the decision to run your business in the parameters of its system. And when you're haywire, it's because you're haywire. You know what it is? It's like, to me, this is what I said. How many times have you met somebody that is, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to lose 20 pounds and I can't lose 20 pounds. And you're just like, come on, sweetie, you can lose 20 pounds. Like you can't lose 20 pounds and have a Snickers bar. Yeah. That's why you can't lose 20 pounds, right?
Wait, that what? No,
okay. And oh my God, I'm not making light of anybody's genuine struggle with weight loss. I'm talking about the person that's really full of nonsense, that really is not actually doing any of the systems to lose weight. And so it's the same with the business. If you're scattered, I'm not saying as a 30 plus year veteran of business that I've never experienced scatter, but I know darn well when I do, because I am scattered. I'm not employing what I know to be the way to do it. And so people listen to podcasts, they read books, they want a magic answer. And the answer is set up the foundation, put the processes in place, and run them. That's it.
Everyone's like, that's so unsexy. Darn it.
Not easy.
Man, I wanted a pill. So I keep going back to it, and everybody knows, because the past few interviews, I'm like, I just want robots, and then the robots will be the systems, and then I can just be on my merry way.
Put me on the list for those robots.
That's my next company, seriously. But it is one of those things where what's difficult about knowing that you have to do systems is feeling scattered, knowing you have to do systems and going, oh, that's even more on my plate. Oh, awesome.
That's true. No, it's true. And in that case, you're exactly right, Jamie. I agree with you 100%. In that case, the thing is to start with something. And because you know what it is, I'll use the same analogy as the weight loss. Because when you start with one something and you master it and you feel good and you see the result of it, then it's like, ooh, let me start with another something. And it's the same thing. It's like if you don't really get serious about your food intake, your exercise output for 3 weeks, and then you finally get real and you look in the mirror, and that one first week that you do it and you know you did it, and all of a sudden you lost 2 pounds, you're like, oh, I could do that next week. And so it's the same thing. It's very overwhelming if you have no systems to listen to great coaches like yourself that teach people how to put systems in. It's sort of like it's too much. So pick one thing and make a system for the intake of your new clients. Just one system. And then watch it work, and you get excited about it. You're like, woo, that was awesome. And now I want another one. Okay, let's have another one, you know?
That's amazing. Well, because that feeling of being on top of something, like, oh, I did that. Oh, I'm like proud of myself. That creates the momentum, which makes you feel so much better. Though it's funny because this happens to my clients, happens to me too, where I'm like, I'm scattered, so I'm just going to not look at it. Like, right. I'm just going to go over here and be on Facebook or whatever. You know what I mean? And so while I know what the logical thing is, it's sometimes easier to not, but I know what works. So what do you do to try and get yourself over that hump, that motivation hump of, I don't want to look at it, versus I'm going to take on one thing and feel that feeling of, let's go get this one small thing?
Well, I'm the sort of person that I'm very much a realist. And so what I will do is I will have like what I call the big girl panties conversation with myself. I'll be like, all right, you're overwhelmed right now. You have 15 things to do. There's about a minute and a half left of this day. And tomorrow is going to start like, you know, gangbusters, because it's going to come with its own list and you still have today's list. And so for me, I literally go to, instead of that moment of overwhelm and that moment of the pile, I go to, well, what are your options? You could put your head in the sand and you could not do this, because is it not going to be there in an hour or 2 hours? So I go to the result. How will you feel, whatever it is, if it's a task that I can get done in a half hour, an hour, or it's a task that takes a week? How will I feel in 1 hour if I've done this? How will I feel? And I'm actually talking about times when it feels hard to push through because you're exhausted. You're really tired. You've already done 11-hour day and you have this one last proposal that you really promised somebody would go out today. And I have sat there literally exhausted at 10:30 at night and went, well, I could blow this off. And what will I feel like tomorrow? Or I could accomplish this. And what will I feel like tomorrow? But mostly I'm going to say I'm going to be tired tomorrow either way. So I may as well be tired and accomplish.
I love that you have this talk in your head, right?
Okay, you could this, you could that, And look, I interview a lot of business people on my show too, and I feel like a lot of people come on very polished. I listen to a lot of podcasts, very polished. This is how you do it. This is what you do. It's all easy. And if you do it, it'll work. And I respect that because as a podcaster, I want people to come with a straight line. And as a podcast listener, I want to get on and get a straight line. But there is this whole other side of it that isn't so pretty. And
thank you.
And that doesn't mean that when we don't have the pretty moments that we're not good business people and that we're not doing the right things. It just means that it isn't all just, hey, open the rule book and do it. Eventually, though, you have to do that. You have to open the rule book and do it.
See, I so appreciate somebody that's been in business for 35 years and with their husband, by the way, that can tell us how it is, because it is a little bit too much polish. Now, I work with clients, and when I work with clients, they tell me all of the crap. So I know what it really is for 6 and 7 figure business owners, and nobody wants to share that stuff. And they all think they're crazy. And I'm like, no, everybody's crazy.
That's right. It's sort of like, you know what it's like? It's like when you watch the Oscars, the red carpet, and you're watching all those women and this and that and the other thing. And then you watch a show that like they've got their boobs taped and they've got their head taped up. And it's like, what? They got, 19,000 things. It's like, it isn't just the good. All of it is good, but all of the good isn't easy or terrific or glamorous or something. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you. Because we need to hear that, especially moms, especially women in business too, trying to juggle all of the things and be perfect at all of it, because that's what we do, right?
That's the goal.
Yay! Look at me, I'm perfect. Oh, I'm not? What? But having the permission to hear from somebody who is successful, who loves their life. Really important for us to go, oh, you can still love your life and have crazy moments? Right. Great. I'm not alone in the craziness. Okay. I know we have to start wrapping up, and I know this totally went a totally different direction than we planned on, and I love
we
that.
We exactly planned not to go this direction. We're so good.
I love this. I'm like, let's go. All right. Perfect. I love how you ride the wave with me. You're totally go with the flow. I have to ask the same last question I always do. So it's, what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
All right. So I have to say that keeping in the theme of our discussion here, and instead of, look, on a very practical level, I would say definitely identify your core mission. I would definitely do that. So from a practical level, you have to identify your core mission. You have to know why you're in business and what your objective is. Then you have to establish your systems, okay? And you have to execute them. And then you have to decide to do them. So those are the 3 things I really think you have to do. But based on our conversation, what I would say is that if you could this week, whether you're in business 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, if you love your business, I'm going to make an assumption that you love your business. If you could just give yourself the gift of picturing yourself in 35 years and picturing where I sit now. It's like the childbirth. I guess it was hard all along the way, but at this point, I just remember all the joys and all the successes. And that doesn't mean I won't hang up this podcast with you and something will blow up. But you do get to a point where if you're running it well and you have healthy respect for the people that are involved with you and your clients and yourself, you get to the point where you come to gratitude for what you've created and awareness of what you've created. And if you're not sure of that, do a pretend, do an act as if, do a moment where you picture yourself there 30 years down the road and say, that's going to be my reward for digging right back in now when I really am tired and my kids are crying and my husband wants dinner on the table or my wife didn't make dinner for me. But take a moment to visualize that exercise and hang on to it and work hard and get back in there.
I'm going to do this tomorrow during my meditation. I usually do 1 year, 5 years. I haven't done a 30-year. You forget. Yeah. Time's going to pass either way. I appreciate you saying that. So I'm going to change that up because a lot changes in 30 years. That's 35. Right. You've been in business as long as I have been alive.
I know.
And you look amazing.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, whatever's working. Totally. I don't care if it's like pins or whatever. Like you said, I want to look like you. That being said, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell us where, I know you have a book coming out soon. Tell us where we can find you more online or your podcast so that way everyone can subscribe.
Yeah, the podcast is a well-designed business podcast, and it is geared towards the interior design industry, which is my wheelhouse. But I always say to outside entrepreneurs, substitute the word interior design for bricklayer. We talk about business. We talk about how to run a good business and how to do systems and so forth like that. So that is right now that podcast is living on the WindowWorks website. So it's www.windowworks-nj.com/podcast. And of course, WindowWorks itself, for window treatments, anybody that's in the New York metro area, we're happy to help you with window treatments or awnings. And then the book is called The Making of a Well-Designed Business. And it basically is the combination of that, page 1, how to open a business, and the reminiscing and the homage to having the experience of building this terrific business with my husband and our cousin. So.
I can't wait till it comes out. And of course, if anyone is in your area, you're the Windows authority. So everybody should go check you out. I'm sure they want to call you up anyway. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, really, really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it so much, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.